They attacked without warning. 173 dead. Medical staff, patients, children. The universe has rules, unwritten laws that govern civilized species. The most sacred is not to attack healers. The Valkyries broke that rule when they destroyed the Passionate Relief Post. They thought humanity was weak because we offered medicine instead of conquest. They mistook our kindness for vulnerability. They never wondered why ancient species feared us before we chose peace. They never imagined what we locked away when we joined the galactic community. They didn't know about the Guardians. They will learn. They attacked Earth's healers. So we sent the Angels of Death. The Passionate Relief Post had orbited Proxima Centauri for 5 years, its gleaming white hull adorned with the universal symbol of medicine, a blue staff with a coiled serpent, the emblem of humanitarian aid throughout the known galaxy. Funded by Earth's united government as a gesture of goodwill, its 300 members represented humanity's finest medical minds, all volunteers serving the interstellar community without prejudice or compensation. Just yesterday, Dr. Ray stood on the observation deck of the main atrium with Dr. Navan Singh, watching the planet's swirling atmosphere below. The Morcad delegation arrives tomorrow, Navan said, adjusting his glasses. They're bringing children with respiratory problems from their mining colonies. It's the first time they've asked for our help. Progress, Alina replied with a smile. Perhaps their elders were finally letting go of old suspicions. Now, as the station burned around her, that hope seemed cruelly naive. In the operating room, Dr. Arjun Patel was in the middle of a procedure on a Nilano diplomat when the attack began. The emergency generators kicked on immediately, but the room shook with each new impact. Stabilize the patient, Arjun ordered. With steady hands despite the chaos. We're moving to the escape pods. We can't move him now, protested his assistant. The neural graft isn't complete. If we stay, we all die, Arjun said gravely. Prepare him for transport through the window. Dr. Ray watched in horror as one of the Valkyrie ships positioned itself to target the main hangar where the escape pods were being launched. They're targeting the escape pods, she whispered. They know exactly what they're doing. In the pediatric ward, Dr. Machin worked frantically to disconnect life support systems for the transfer. Little Vidiano trembled in her hands. It's okay, little one, she soothed him, even as another explosion rocked the station. I'm not leaving you. On the bridge of the lead Valkyrie ship, Commander Zertle surveyed the destruction with cold satisfaction. Aim for your escape pods, he ordered. No survivors. His second-in-command hesitated. Commander, our scans confirm this is a medical facility. There are patients of 17 different species on board, including Valkyrie children from the outer colonies. They are contaminated by human medicine. Serzel replied emotionlessly. The High Council was clear. Human expansion must be contained. Your so-called humanitarian outposts are nothing more than the first wave of your colonization efforts. The attack raged for 47 minutes. When it ended, Compassion was just a shattered hull leaking atmosphere into space. Of the 62 escape pods launched, only 17 escaped the Valkyrie weapons. The rest were destroyed with all their occupants on board, doctors, nurses, patients, and support staff. One surviving pod contained Dr. Maya Chen, 3 nurses, and 4 critically ill patients. As her small ship spun aimlessly through space, Maya recorded a final transmission on the pod's emergency beacon. This is Dr. Maya Chen speaking from the medical outpost with passion. We were attacked without provocation by Valkyrie warships. They deliberately targeted medical personnel and patients during the evacuation. 173 confirmed dead. They knew we were doctors. They knew it and they still fired. The message reached Earth 20 hours later at the underground complex beneath Geneva, headquarters of Earth's United Defense Council. President Sofia Alvarez watched the recording for the 3rd time, her face a mask of barely contained anger. Around the oval table sat the 12 members of her Security Council, military leaders, intelligence directors, and top diplomats. Options, she said simply when the recording ended. Admiral Kazu Nakamura, head of the Earth Fleet, spoke first. Standard protocols would dictate a diplomatic censure backed by an increased defensive posture around our remaining posts. And how many more will die while we navigate the diplomatic channels? Asked General Maria Das, her voice strained with suppressed emotion. The Valkyries deliberately targeted medical personnel. They violated the most fundamental principle of interstellar law. Director L. Way of Intelligence cleared his throat. Our analysis suggests this was not the action of a rogue group, but a calculated attack authorized by the Valkyrie High Council. They are testing our response, looking for weakness before a possible wider aggression. And if we show weakness, President Alvarez's eyes narrowed, more attacks will follow, Way confirmed. The Valkyries only respect strength and fear. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to the president. Sofia Alvarez had guided Earth through 8 years of unprecedented peaceful expansion. She had championed the medical outpost program as the cornerstone of human diplomatic efforts. Now she faced the most difficult decision of her career. What about the Guardians? She asked quietly. Several council members exchanged uneasy glances. Admiral Nakamura straightened in his seat. Madam President, deploying the Guardians would be an extreme response, and that's not what this situation demands, she retorted. The Valkyries have committed an atrocity. They have attacked those who heal, those who save lives, regardless of species or loyalty. Dr. Ilana Morales, a general surgeon, interjected. 27 of my colleagues were confirmed dead in that attack. 46 are still missing. Her voice hardened. The Valkyries knew exactly what they were doing. President Alvarez rose and walked to the mural displaying the known galaxy. She traced with her finger the border regions where human medical posts operated. Humanity joined the galactic community promising peace. We continue to believe in that promise. Her finger paused on the Valkyrie homeworld, but there must be lines that cannot be crossed without consequences. She turned to face the council. The Valkyries have made a critical error. They believe that because we seek peace, we have forgotten war. A cold smile touched her lips. We should remind them why the ancient species were so relieved when we chose diplomacy over conquest. Admiral Nakamura sighed heavily. If we deploy the Guardians, there will be diplomatic repercussions. Many species remember our more aggressive past. Then let them remember it well, Sophia replied. Activate Protocol Nemesis. Deploy the Guardians with the following parameters: locate and rescue any survivors, identify and neutralize all those responsible, and ensure that such an attack never happens again. She paused, looking each council member in the eye. The Valkyries attacked our healers. Now they will face our warriors. Meanwhile, at a maximum security Valkyrie detention facility, Dr. Navening regained consciousness in a sterile cell. His body ached from the intensified interrogation he had endured for hours. Across the corridor, he could hear the muffled snorts of other medical staff. A Valkyrie officer entered his cell, escorted by guards. You will tell us the true purpose of the post with passion, he demanded. What information were you gathering on Valkyrie military capabilities? Naveen coughed, tasting blood. We were treating patients, children with respiratory problems from their mining colonies. The officer punched him hard in the face. Lies. No medical facility needs the sophisticated network of sensors we detected. Supposedly, we were mapping our defense networks. They were Jadian diagnostic imaging systems. To treat internal injuries in different species. The High Council has determined otherwise, the officer retorted coldly. Your colleagues have already confessed. Naveen closed his eyes. Then why continue questioning me? The truth was that the Valkyries hadn't extracted any useful information from any of the captured medical personnel. Their interrogations yielded nothing but denials that matched the official version. Commander Zerzel was growing increasingly frustrated, convinced that the humans had been trained to resist interrogation. Increase the intensity, she ordered upon receiving the report on the lack of progress. If they won't reveal Earth's true intentions, at least they won't serve as bargaining chips. Far below the Olympus Mons colony on Mars, in a facility that officially didn't exist, Commander Alexandra Volkov received the activation codes that hadn't been used in 15 years. Her augmented eyes scanned the authorization, and neural implants confirmed its authenticity. She turned to her executive officer. Wake them up. At the center of the facility, 12 stasis pods began the reanimation sequence. Inside each pod lay a member of humanity's most feared Special Operations Unit. The Guardians were the dark secret behind human peace. Monsters kept chained unless absolutely necessary. As the first pod hissed open, Commander Volkov stepped forward. Inside was Colonel Jeremiah Kane. His dark skin was marked with the scars of the neural interface that connected him to his combat systems. His eyes snapped open, fully alert despite his years in stasis. The Nemesis protocol has been activated, Volkov informed him. The Valkyries have attacked the medical post with ferocity. Kane sat up, his face impassive, but his gaze darkened. Casualties, 173 confirmed. 46 medical personnel remain missing, presumably captured. Kane nodded, processing the information through his enhanced neural networks. Around him, the other pods opened as his team awoke. They were 12 individuals with diverse specialties, backgrounds, and reasons for joining the Guardians, but they shared one common trait. They were the best assassins humanity had ever produced. Mission parameters, Kane asked as he stood and accepted the simple black uniform offered to him. Find our own, punish those responsible. Make an example of them. A cold smile crossed Kane's face as he flexed his augmented muscles and neural pathways reconnected to combat systems that had been dormant for years. The Valkyries should have left our doctors alone, he said quietly. Now it's your turn to meet the monsters. Major Lydia Reynolds stepped out of her pod, her eyes instantly adjusting to the light before volunteering for the Guardians program. She had been Earth's deadliest infiltration specialist. Now her body was enhanced with cutting-edge technology that made her virtually invisible to most detection systems. How long have we been inactive, she asked, rolling her shoulders as the nanomachines in her body reactivated. 7 years and 4 months, Commander Volkov replied. The last mission was the Drenter incident. Lydia's expression hardened at the memory. The Drenter had attacked a human colony world with biological weapons. The Guardians' response had been exhaustive. The Drenter Empire had gone from a major power to a refugee species in a matter of weeks. Lieutenant Marcus Chen was the next to fully awaken, his neural implants already interfering with the facility's systems. Before joining the Guardians, he had been Earth's most notorious systems infiltrator. Now his mind operated at speeds impossible for an unaugmented human. I've accessed the intelligence briefing, he reported, his eyes glowing as he processed terabytes of data. I have likely locations of Valkyrian detention facilities where they might be holding our medical personnel. One by one, the other Guardians awoke. Major Ilana Santos, a psychological warfare specialist, whose neural implants could manipulate the perceptions of most known species. Captain Derek Walls, whose enhanced musculature and skeleton made him virtually indestructible in combat. Lieutenant Aisha, whose enhanced reflexes and custom weapon systems made her the team's deadliest specialist in close combat. Each Guardian represented a different approach to warfare. All enhanced beyond normal human limitations, all engineered to inflict maximum psychological impact on their targets. They weren't just soldiers, they were living weapons, specifically designed to exploit the psychological and biological weaknesses of enemy species. 6 hours after receiving the activation code, the Guardian's stealth ship departed Mars for Valkyrian space. Unlike without conventional military deployments, there would be no declaration of hostilities, no warning, no deterrence. The Valkyries were about to discover why humanity had been feared before turning peaceful. On the Valkyrie homeworld, Supreme Leader Sarbak received Commander Searle's report with growing unease. Human medical personnel continued to maintain their cover-up story despite intense questioning. Worse still, intercepted communications suggested that Earth was aware of the attack and preparing a response. What form will their retaliation take? Sarek asked his military advisors. Fleet Admiral Cousin stepped forward. Based on human behavior patterns, they will likely seek diplomatic censure through the Galactic Concordat. While repositioning defensive assets around their remaining outposts, they may impose trade restrictions or seek sanctions. And a military response is unlikely, Cousin replied confidently. Humans have maintained a minimal military presence since joining the galactic community. Their fleet is designed for defense, not projection of power. They lack the capacity to strike deep within our territory. Sark wasn't convinced. There are rumors about human military capabilities that keep hidden special units or weapons systems not included in official statements. Stories to increase their diplomatic leverage. Curson dismissed. Our intelligence has never found evidence of such forces. Then why, Saraja asked, did the ancient species advise such caution when humans first ventured beyond their homeworld? The question hung unanswered in the room as a communications officer entered with an urgent report. Supreme Leader, we have lost contact with our frontier outpost on Nexus 6. The last transmission reported unusual sensor readings, then silence. At that moment, humanity's response had begun. Deep in the shadows of human history lay the origins of the Guardians. As Colonel Khan's stasis pod completed its reanimation sequence, fragments of memory emerged, not dreams, for Guardians did not dream during stasis, but reactivations of neural pathways, images of what had once been, of what everyone had once been. The Guardians program had begun 47 years earlier, when humanity first encountered the Crash Dominion. The Crash, an aggressive and expansionist species, had interpreted Earth's peaceful overtures as weakness. Their first contact resulted in the destruction of 3 human colony ships and the deaths of more than 2,000 civilians. Earth responded with conventional military force, and the resulting conflict lasted 3 brutal years. Humanity prevailed, but at a terrible cost. The experience taught Earth's leaders a harsh lesson. In a galaxy of ancient and entrenched powers, humanity needed more than conventional warfare, a deterrent so effective that peaceful relations would be the only logical option for potential adversaries. Colonel Jeremiah Khan was then Major Kanan, a decorated Special Forces commander with 17 confirmed kills and a reputation for tactical brilliance. When he was offered the opportunity to join the experimental program, he asked only one question: will it protect more lives than it takes? The answer was theoretical at that time. Now, decades later, the numbers proved she had been right. The Guardians had been deployed only 3 times in 40 years. Each intervention had been surgical, limited, and devastatingly effective. Peace through controlled terror. The promise of overwhelming force applied with precision. As Kane emerged from her pod, her enhanced neural systems processed those memories in microseconds. Her focus returned to the present, to the mission. The Valkyries had broken the unwritten pact, they would face the consequences. Major Lydia Reynolds had been different before the program. As her consciousness expanded during reanimation, she remembered her former self, Intelligence Officer Reynolds, whose infiltration of the Carrier Syndicate had saved millions from a biological weapons attack. She had volunteered for the Guardians program after witnessing the aftermath of the crash attack on the colony of New Atlantis. There are threats you can't negotiate with, she had told the selection committee. Sometimes the only language you understand is force. I want to be that force that preserves peace. The irony was not lost on her. To become a weapon to prevent the need for weapons. The physical enhancements had been unbearable, and the neural modifications even worse. Human bodies weren't designed for the enhancements the program demanded. Of the initial 50 volunteers, only 27 survived the procedures. Of those, barely 15 remained stable enough for deployment. Now there were 12 left, the elite of the elite, preserved in ecstasy between crises. Lieutenant Marcus Chen had arrived at the Guardian's house from prison. A brilliant systems architect turned criminal hacker, he was serving a 30-year sentence for the largest breach of financial systems in Earth's history when the program recruited him. Your skills could serve humanity instead of exploiting it, they told him. A chance at redemption. What they didn't mention was the price, the loss of his original body, the integration of his consciousness with quantum processors, the ability to connect directly to any digital system in exchange for never being fully human again. Chen accepted. Better a monster with a purpose than a human without one. As the ecstatic waves continued their activation sequence, each guardian processing their own story, their own reasons for becoming what they were. Major Ilana Santos, a specialist in psychological warfare, had been a renowned xenopsychologist whose pioneering work in interspecies communication had saved countless lives in first contact scenarios. She decided to join the Guardians after the Drenter used psychological warfare to drive an entire human colony to mass suicide. She vowed never to return, submitting to the neural modifications that allowed her to project emotional states, manipulate pheromone receptors, and override standard thought patterns in most known sentient species. Captain Derek Walsh had been a mining engineer in Europe when pirates attacked his post. He watched his family die, powerless against superior technology and numbers. His rage drove him to volunteer for the program's most extensive physical enhancements, reinforced bone structure, synthetic muscle fibers, and an enhanced respiratory and circulatory system that made him virtually indestructible in combat. "Make me what you want," he said. "You need," she told the scientists. "Just make me strong enough to protect the defenseless." Lieutenant Aisha Akaro, the team's close-quarters combat specialist, had been an Olympic athlete before joining Earth's Special Forces. Her already exceptional natural speed and reflexes were enhanced to superhuman levels. Her nervous system now processed information 10 times faster than a standard human, allowing her to perceive the world as if in slow motion during combat situations. "I joined because I could," she explained simply. "Few bodies could survive these modifications. Mine could, that created an obligation." The remaining Guardians each had their story, their reason for sacrifice. Commander Alexandra Volkovia had them all. She had been part of the original program, one of the first augmented soldiers. Age and the accumulated wear and tear on the systems had forced her to retire from field operations, but her experience made her the perfect supervisor for the current team. The Valkyries attacked a medical post, she informed them as their systems fully activated. They deliberately targeted pods and evacuation with wounded patients and unarmed medical personnel. The Guardians' reactions were minimal, faces barely changing, vital signs showing only slight variations. Their emotional responses were muted. Another modification designed to increase operational effectiveness. "This will be a standard response mission," Volkov continued. "Find our own, punish those responsible, send a message the galaxy will not forget." The briefing continued with tactical details, but the minds of Canandrones, probabilities, psychological impacts. The Guardians had been created precisely for this scenario, to be the nightmare that kept other species choosing diplomacy over aggression. 25 years ago, during their first deployment, the Guardians had responded to the Drenter attack on the New Haven colony. The Drenter had used biological weapons against civilian targets, killing more than 30,000 colonists. The Guardians' response was measured, but devastating. They infiltrated the Drenter homeworld, disabled its biological weapons program, extracted its highest military leadership was summoned to try him under galactic law, and evidence of war crimes was broadcast to the entire Drenter population. Most importantly, capabilities were demonstrated that terrified the Drenter military. Soldiers undetectable by standard sensors, moving with impossible speed, seemingly predicting tactical responses before they occurred. The Drenter Empire, which controlled 27 star systems, collapsed within months, not from military defeat, but from an internal revolution. Its own population, horrified by the exposed atrocities and terrified of a new human response, overthrew the military government. The second deployment against the Carius Syndicate was even more surgical. A single Guardian, Lieutenant Chen, infiltrated its network, identified the leadership structure, and broadcast their locations to local authorities on 17 worlds simultaneously. The coordinated raids that followed ended the Syndicate's centuries-long reign of terror. By the end of the day, the third deployment was still classified, even within the government itself. Earth. Only the Guardians knew what had happened, what lines had been crossed to prevent a threat that would have ended millions of lives. Each deployment reinforced the same message. Humanity preferred peace, but was capable of waging war on a level few species could comprehend. "The Valkyries think we've gone soft," Volkov said. Concluding the briefing, "They see our medical posts as signs of weakness, our diplomatic efforts as fear disguised as altruism." "A common mistake," Major Santos observed in a clinically dispassionate voice. "Species with long histories of conflict tend to project their own motivations onto others. They can't conceive of force choosing containment. They'll learn," Kanan affirmed. "It's just that President Alvarez hadn't taken the decision to activate the Nemesis Protocol lightly. The existence of the Guardians program was still officially denied by Earth's government. The ethical concerns were considerable. Creating living weapons, pushing human modification beyond established limits, maintaining a force of the attack was outside the normal military command structure. Each activation required direct presidential authorization. The protocols had been designed to prevent abuses, ensuring that the Guardians remained humanity's last resort, not its first response. Alvarez had thoroughly reviewed the intelligence reports. The Valia attack hadn't been a mistake by a rogue commander, but a calculated political decision by his High Council. They had deliberately targeted the most vulnerable, medical personnel, patients, children, to test Earth's response. The Guardians were that precise, overwhelming, and carefully calibrated response, designed to generate maximum psychological impact. As the team prepared for deployment, Ken performed his pre-mission ritual. He accessed the records of those killed in the attack on the outpost with passion. He memorized their names, their faces, their specialties. Dr. Tomas Rivera, Xenocardiology. Nurse Aiko Tanaka, Pediatric Care. Dr. Samuel Nvekwi, Emergency Medicine. 173 names, 173 faces. Each one a healer who had volunteered to serve on the frontiers of space, extending human compassion to all species without prejudice. That was the reason the Guardians existed, not to conquer or avenge, but to ensure humanity's peaceful emissaries could continue their work. The Guardians were the shadow that allowed the light to spread, the monsters created so that the best of human nature could flourish. Pre-deployment checks complete, Chen reported as the team boarded their stealth vessel, all systems in optimal condition. Kane assumed his command position. Mission parameters are clear. This is not extermination, it is a lesson. The Guardians acknowledged the order with minimal gestures. They understood its purpose. They were not just soldiers, they were a message. In the Guardians' ship's sickbay, Dr. Kabita Sharma monitored the team's biometrics. Once a pioneer in neurosurgery, she had joined the program after helping develop the technology behind the Guardians' enhancements. She was the only unmodified human that she accompanied them on missions, tasked with maintaining their systems and mitigating the biological wear and tear of their augmentations. Stable neural alignment, she reported, combat efficiency at optimal levels. What she didn't report, what official records never showed, was the cost. Each deployment accelerated cellular degradation in the Guardians. Each awakening from stasis reduced their effective lifespan. The modifications that made them superhuman also guaranteed they would never live normal human lives, nor with the same longevity. That was the sacrifice they had accepted, to become the darkness that protected the light. As their ship prepared for the transition to hyperspace, Kane reviewed the final mission parameters. The Guardians would deploy as individual operators, each with specific objectives that would contribute to the overall mission. They would operate with absolute authority within those parameters, coordinating through their neural link, but functioning as independent strategic units. They were the nightmare the Valkyries never imagined when they fired on the outpost with such passion. They were humanity's angels of death, ready to deliver a message the galaxy would not forget. The ship vanished into hyperspace, heading for Valkyrian territory. The Guardian's vessel emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Valkyrian hegemony, its advanced stealth systems rendering it invisible to conventional detection.